You can see it resting on the record, very fine resting. It will travel along in a horizontal position. So there's a screw in this tube you see at the bottom. There's a screw that actually drives this thing along for the correct speed it's rotating and pulls the needle along, versus disc records, which use the disc to move the needle. This uses a screw to move it along at the exact rate it needs to be moved on. So Mill's patent, we can see the sawtooth pattern you see here, and that finger sticking up in the sawtooth. The way this worked is we can see as the machine was playing that would move along. The pin is in a fixed position, and the sawtooth. Take that back. The pin moves along with the screw, and the sawtooth is fixed. So as we can see, that pin will move along the sawtooth and get higher and higher and higher, and then drop down again. Let's put in another coin so you can see this operation. Sorry for the goofy video here. Let's get this set up right. So there's the secret of the voice of the verbal. That's how she talks. And Mills had that patent. You can certainly look that up online if you're into the minutia like I am, and get the full description of it. If we look at the back here, it's really cool the way they designed this thing. If we look at the back, we see that the string there and that little pulley. The pulley goes down to a tube down below, and there's the brass tube. And inside that brass tube is a big cast iron counterweight. And so we see as we travel down the way, the cylinder plays more and more fortunes, gets to the very end, it gets this very large sawtooth. When it gets to that, it pushes this arm far enough away so it releases this latch, and then it releases the needle becomes released at that point, and it's not in the screw anymore. It can just slide back to the original position. That counterweight of that cast iron weight inside pulls it back to the original. I'm not going to demo that right now, but it's pretty cool. Pulls it back to the original starting position and gets ready for the next round of fortunes. She played. This is. Let's talk a little bit about the records, because this is a pretty cool story. We're building this, and we really didn't have a good clue on how this stuff was going. We just kind of pursued things. So we found the record players. We acquired those, and started working on the device. And we were just thinking, well, we have to mock up some kind of record. We have to come up with something here. So I did a lot of digging and found there were a couple of businesses that still make cylinder records, or they make reproductions of cylinder records. And I found an outfit called Vulcan, I believe it's Vulcan Records, out in, you'd have to look it up where they're actually based out of. But I believe it's UK, as I recall. It's been a while. But he does a lot of the Edison 2-minute cylinders, and we communicated, and he said, "Wow, I'm totally set up for doing a Columbia 6-inch, and I always wanted to do one, but I've never had a reason to do one, and you're my reason." So we worked out a deal, and he made us the cylinders, and you can see we had them stamped. This may not be as original. Took a little bit of license there, but Verbal Fortune Teller Ladies, Mills Novelty came out really cool. He unstamps the records, so did a fantastic job for us. Now the audio for that is a whole nother story. We were working on the project and trying to think. We were just going to create fortunes, and we kind of had worked out how it worked on the timing. She typically says 3 sentences fairly quickly, and it runs for 12 seconds. The cylinder, if you break down the timing and stuff, you can see it, but it's about 15 seconds total for each fortune, and the thing will run for 15 seconds, and there's about 12 seconds of voice on that time. So very little distance between for the timing on this. We had to get it just right. So we were going to create fortunes, but as it turned out, the curator ended up finding a cylinder for the fortune teller, and this was amazing for us. We were super excited about this, and But as it turns out, it was cracked and really in bad condition. And we're like, how can we solve for this? Right? We can't get the audio off of this thing. Well, I did a lot of research, and as it turns out, around that same time, there was actually literally a couple of rocket scientists out of Stanford University that were working on a process for the Library of Congress to create a method of reading the data that is the audio on cylinder records without touching a needle touching the record. Because Library of Congress has thousands of cylinder records they want to get the audio off of, but they don't want to damage the thing by potentially trying to play them. And this worked perfect for our example. So they were still working on the device, and I contacted them and convinced them to help us out by doing this, because it's another test for them, right? A way of testing their new process. So I spoke to the curator, and she flew out to California to visit her family. It turned out that they were out there, and dropped off the cylinder for the scientists to work on, and they gave her back the audio off of the cylinder. So super cool. And we were able to transcribe all that audio. Very tinny, very, it captured most. We had to listen for hours to try to figure out all the words. We finally solved them all, but really challenging, and a fun challenge to try to figure out what the very tinny, very light audio. We had to really work hard to find that. But we got all the fortunes, and we then made the cylinders. I had a local voiceover artist who was fantastic at recreating voices, and she did a great job on recreating the voice of the original woman who did the voices for the record. I'll show you a little bit about the tin plate here. These are the coin raceways on either side, and you can see we bent those up and folded them just as original. And so we wanted that chrome tin or the tin plated steel to represent same as the original. A little bit more there. Looking down in the guts here now. So if we look at this is the cylinder record player. If you see a BG, they have this in there, but they also have a huge spring in there, wound spring that operates it. Well, Mills took out the spring because obviously they couldn't use that, and they replaced it with a belt drive and a pulley. So a great way of solving for it, and so that will run the record instead of the spring motor. If we look at how that functions, we have a shaft there and a shaft over here running the cylinder record players. We have leather belts that drive the system. We put in a little spring as a tension take-up. It actually works really well. I think originally they might have just stapled it, but this will allow for some slack but keep any stretch in check. What else we got here? So it's very, very ingenious the way they did this. So there are two solenoids here. I'm trying to light this thing properly for you guys. Apologize for that. Two solenoids, and depending on which side you put the coin in, one of these solenoids will engage and pull downwards. There's an arm that is then pulled down, and if we can see here, try to get in there. This is essentially like a knife blade, called like a cheese slicer, and it pulls down onto a threaded shaft. You can see down below there. And the two sides of the threaded shaft are threaded in opposite directions. So what that does is it pulls, this shaft moves in and out. It's a moving shaft. And that moving shaft will then select one of these two pulleys, because that pin engages with this other pin, right? So one of the two pulleys that drive this will engage to move one of the particular cylinders. And in the back, that motion also moves the head. It pivots that arm you see going up. I'll see if I can get an idea of that. So you can see that that little to the side there, that little moving arm turns off some of the lights inside the cabinet, and then that shaft that it's on rotates, and that's what rotates her head from side to side. The other thing they threw in here that's cool is you see that little leather like stop sign in the back there. That actually rotates off of the shaft of the unit. It's actually driven by a cam over there, and that moves this bar up and down so it can operate from either side. And that rotating stop sign, leather stop sign, moves a wire, this wire right here, that's a very fine wire you see next to the shaft, and that's what moves her eyes and her teeth and tongue. So really ingenious. We'll do one more run of the machine here so you can get a sense of how this operates. Let's see, I gotta get up for that. You'll see one of the two solenoids pull down, and it all moves pretty quickly. I'll do the men's side because that's where we're pointing at, and you can get a sense of how it works here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. All right, so secrets of the verbal revealed. Hope you enjoyed this little tour of the machine. And if you get up to Virginia City, Montana, definitely, or through Montana, definitely check out the verbal. And see you later.